Chapter 31, How I Rebelled as a Child. Some additional thoughts on that. Before we get started on that, let me just say Tyler and Alicia just informed us that Reagan will be coming home, they believe, on February the 9th. Today is the 17th of January, so we're looking 3 weeks here, and so we're so excited to have old Reagan back and get to see him and hear him and feel of that spirit that has been so enhanced over these last 2 years serving a great mission in Everett, Washington. So we're grateful that we get that opportunity. We're looking forward to that. One other thing, Mom is in the study working on her book. Not story worth, but another book that she's working on, has been working on for months and months and months, and the illustrations and the cover and all of that sort of thing. She works so hard at it and revises and goes over and criticizes and doesn't like this and changes and all of that sort of, and which is good. That's great. That's her. Let me just tell you, how I wrote these 2 books, and she's way better at it than I am, but it's a stark contrast, and that's the reason I wanted to mention it. As I got the questions from various folks, kids and in-laws and all that stuff, I sat down on a Sunday and started, I'd think about it for a minute, but then I'd start typing, and I typed what came to my mind, and that was the book. I mean, I reread it to make sure, there's still some flaws as I've read it again here, but some misspelling or a capitalization here and there or so forth. But very little revision went on as I wrote those books. And so in this process where I'm rereading the books and then having additional thoughts, it's the same thing. I reread the chapter with a book and a little piece of paper in hand, and I take a few notes, a couple of notes here and there, some thoughts that came to my mind in additional ways, how I did this or how I reacted to that, and the various questions in the book. And then I turn on the tape and give it one take, and away we go. So I'm not quite as fastidious, I guess, as Mom is, and that's why she's really good at what she does. And what you get is what you get for me. So take it for what it's worth. That's kind of how this process has taken place. So, all right, back to chapter 31 in rebelling as a child. Mentioned several, 2 or 3 ways, but there are 2 or 3 other thoughts that I had here. I mentioned I kind of like girls even growing up a little bit. As I looked at that chapter and looked at the pictures in that chapter, if I mentioned I had a little girlfriend even in the 1st or 2nd grade, 3rd grade, whatever it was, I don't know. Her name was April Lardson, and looking at the pictures, I found her in those pictures. If you look in the book on pages 38 and 39 of the 2nd volume, of course, the 4th and the 5th grade classes are pictured in those pages. April Lardson is in the front row on the 4th grade picture. She's in the front row, first one on the right, with the little bangs and so forth. First one on the right. In the 5th grade picture, she is right in the center, and she's wearing the same dress she did in the 4th grade. She and I kind of, we wear the same stuff to the picture day every year. So, at any rate, no big deal, but I thought I'd just mention that one. Oh, there was one other little deal. In those pictures, I have memories of virtually every person in those pictures. We could recount, several. Bob Powell is in that. He was a neighbor of mine just down the street. Great friend. His birthday's on the shortest day of the year, December the 21st. I remember that. I also remember that I don't remember the year, what year we were in school, but it was in grade school. And one day, Bob's mother, I think, ended up running off with some other guy and left the kids, Bob and his brother and his sister and his dad. She just went away. And that was a sad situation. I remember that. I was in their home many times. Mrs. Powell, very, very nice lady and so forth, but I didn't know that at the time. Didn't realize what had happened, but she just went away. And I didn't realize why. I'm sure that's until later on, but that was a sad situation. Another good friend in those pictures, Neil Dimmick is in there. He had a dog by the name of Moochie. That's a strange name for a dog, but we walked to school, walked to the bus stop way up on Washington Street. It was quite a little walk from where we lived each morning, and Moochie followed, and bad story, but he was out on the busy street in Washington, got run over. I remember that, just before school, and we pulled him over to the curb, and of course, not a fun sight or experience to have. And Neil was devastated, and we all were, because he lost his little dog there. He got run over. So those are some of those memories. Now Neil Dimmick. He and Dave, that was his older brother, we used to play poker. I remember that. We'd go up in his room, we'd go play poker. That's where I learned how to play poker, I think. And it's no big claim to fame, but anyway, got a lot of good memories with those folks in Montpelier, and it's an eclectic group, but I do have some good memories there. One other memory that came as we were looking at those pictures and reading that chapter. Maybe I've mentioned this before, but I never was much of a dancer. To the chagrin of your mom, she is a really good dancer, but I never learned how to do all that, ballroom dancing. I could shake my booty with the rock and roll and all that sort of thing. That's okay, I could do that. But the ballroom dancing, where you hold them and go this way or that way, I never learned how to do that. I attribute that to two things. One, I was always playing ball, not dancing. But the other one was there was a young lady in that picture. Her name was Linda Irving, and nice little girl, and so forth. But she is on page 39. She's the second row, the first one to the left. Girls are always the biggest one in the class in grade school, was normally the case. Well, that wasn't the case in my class. I was always the biggest, but Linda was the second biggest. And when they paired us up to dance in the early grades, I don't know what they did. They always paired us up according to size, so I always got Linda Irving as my partner. And she was rather pretty good sized girl. So when they did the hokey pokey, now my grandkids, probably my kids don't even know what that is, but when they did the hokey pokey, you put your left arm in and shake it all about, and you put all parts of you in, and so forth. When old Linda put her whole self in, she put her whole self in. It was about 8 on the Richter scale, and she put her whole self in there. And at any rate, hokey pokey was never my favorite anyway, but But that kind of soured me on dancing, so we'll just blame Linda and my sports for that. All right, well, that's enough about that. Now, the other thing about those pictures, both of those pictures have a little lady, the teacher, fourth and fifth grades, Mrs. Clayton. She was the wife of the principal, Mr. Clayton, and her daughter was in our class. She's in those pictures as well, Galen Clayton. Anyway, we don't need to point all those out, but Mrs. Clayton, very good teacher, but boy, she was a tough sister. She didn't take any guff. She didn't mess around. She expected, which is a good thing, but to the chagrin of me and most others, she was a disciplinarian and expected everything to be done right. And oh man, she was a tough sister. She was about 4 foot nothing. I was bigger than she was, I think, in the fourth grade, but at any rate. But she didn't take any guff. And I remember at the end of the fourth grade thinking, oh, hallelujah. I'm moving up to the fifth grade. I'm going to get rid of Mrs. Clayton. I don't have to put up with her anymore. However, in the middle of the summer of my fourth grade, they announced that Mrs. Clayton would now be moving up to the fifth grade at Lincoln School, which is where I was going next. So I had her 2 years. 2 years. That was brutal. But in retrospect, I'm glad I had her. She was tough, but she was didn't take any guff from anybody. Big, little, doesn't matter. She was a tough sister. At any rate, so there's a couple of other thoughts I had about chapter 31. Thanks very much.